makes you and all your friends down there at that church think that you have the authority and that you're the only one that has truth, or whatever that question is exactly. But they come at you with a question like that. How do you respond and take that and bring about the opportunity? This may be the kind of question you get as you get more personal with people. But the thing you have to be careful with in an instance such as this is to not take it personal. Sometimes this may be a question, it may be a true attack, okay? And if it really is an attack, it's not an attack on you, it's an attack on Christ. You also have to keep in mind that, you know what, your answer to their question may be merely posing another question for them to answer. Now, you don't do that by just necessarily asking a question, but you're prompting them to think. Because remember, the question that they're asking is something for them. And that's where we have to understand this. That's where we have to understand that this is an opportunity. It's for them, not for us. It's not about us winning an argument. It's not about any of those kind of things. That's why that's a good point when people say, you know, you should walk away feeling like you've won an argument or anything. It's not about an argument. It's not about being right. When that becomes the case, then pride has gotten in the way and we're going to mess up. And the other thing I would say is your response may not all be at once. You may get through with some people, you may get through everything that all of you guys have talked about here. I mean, you may present the gospel and that may be the exact thing that they need, their heart may be at that right point, ready to receive and all that kind of stuff. And you may get the win of Christ right on the spot. For other people, you may not be able to do anything but pose a question that they might think about. So these things are very important, but what we also have to realize and what we really have to see is it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. With that, I want to show you just a few things from a passage of Scripture. This is over in John chapter 3. Key verse is John chapter 3 and verse 30. He must increase, but I must decrease. And after these things, Jesus and his disciples came to the land of Judea, and there he remained with them and he baptized. Now John was also baptizing in Aenon near Salim, because there was much water there, and they came and they were baptized. For John had not yet been thrown into prison. So this is after John had baptized Jesus, but before John had been thrown into prison. So at this time they were both baptizing. Okay, that's the long and short of what was just said there. Then there arose a dispute among some of John's disciples and the Jews about purification. That's a Jewish thing. We're not going to talk about that a lot tonight, but the laws of purification, the mikvahs and all that kind of stuff. But there was a little, I guess, arguments or a little bit of a dispute over this going on. And they came to John and they said to him, Rabbi, he who was with you is beyond the Jordan, and to the one that you've testified of, behold, he is baptizing, and all are coming to him. So they come to him and they're like, hey John, we've been over here having this dispute about, and talking about purification, and speaking of baptizing, hey, that guy you baptized is over there baptizing, and they're all going to him. John answered and he said, a man can receive nothing unless it has been given to him from heaven. You yourselves bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before him. He who has the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom, who stands and hears him, rejoices greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. Therefore, this joy of mine is fulfilled. He must increase, but I must decrease. He who comes from above is above all. He who is of the earth is earthly and speaks of the earth. He who comes from heaven is above all, and what he has seen and heard, that he testifies, and no one receives his testimony. He who has received his testimony has certified that God is true. For he whom God has sent speaks the words of God. For God does not give the Spirit by measure. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into his hand. He who believes in the Son has everlasting life, and he who does not believe the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abides on him. First thing that we have to see here is I pose to you guys a question. Okay? But what is the question that was posed to John here? So the first thing to see is, while, on the surface it seems like a very different question, the question is not as different as it really seems. Because there still is that, because think about it. If John had allowed that question of authority and his authority versus Christ's authority and all that, if he had taken that personal in the sense that he allowed his pride to get in the way, what would his answer have looked like? The first one is to redirect. To redirect. When a question like this comes at us, what is one of the first things that we do? It's about redirecting that energy of that question that's coming for us. Not taking the brunt of the blow ourselves. It's like, those of you who've done self-defense and Aikido and that kind of stuff. That's one of the things that we always state. What do? You don't take the blow, you don't fight the blow, whatever. You redirect, and you use that energy. Use the energy that people have coming at you, and you use that energy to turn it into something else, right? Now, in this case, it's not about our self-defense, but ultimately it's about a goal that we have to redirect them to the right question that they should be asking, to the right question that they need answered in their life. So that redirection is so very important, right? So the first thing we're going to do is redirect. That's next. Then he begins to refocus the situation. Okay? To redirect it first, but then to focus it in on what it needs to be focused on. The second thing we see here that he says, John speaks of the fact that he has said that he was sent to speak of the bridegroom, that he is a messenger. So the first thing he does is he redirects. Man can only do something if that authority is given to him. I don't have authority on my own, like a lot of you guys have said. Then as he redirects, he begins to now focus in on where does that authority come from? How do you answer that question? Okay? And that refocus there is the next important step, because what are you ultimately doing? It's about refocusing on truth. And the next word that I see there is one of recognition. Yes, I could have talked about this up front, but because to me, there has to be a prerequisite to all this, is you recognize the situation. But in this passage of Scripture, when John says in 3:30 that he must increase and I must decrease, to me that shows the understanding of everything here. That was John's recognition of what was going on. And it came after these other two things when you look at this passage of Scripture. So I kept it in that same order. And I did that because I believe that recognition is central to this whole thing. You have to recognize first what's coming at you. You have to recognize that there's opportunity. You have to recognize all those kinds of things. But what you're also doing as you redirect and you help people refocus is you're helping them recognize in their own lives the real question that they have. So this element of recognition, and ultimately what you want them to recognize is that truly, he must increase, I must decrease. And that recognition that we have is something that we're going to share as part of this class. There's another thing that John brings up here that I think is very important, and that is one of reason. People understand that. It's a logical and a reasonable question that we have. So, I think it's very important to take people down that path of the fact that there is reason to this. There is a reasoning behind it that goes with it. And John said here, after he talked about recognition, he goes on, he dives on this a little bit more, and he says there are things that are above, and that the one from heaven is above all. There are things that are above, and the one that is heaven is above all. You see, and that's where this thought process for me of reason comes into play, because that's a reasonable question. If there really is one that's above, who is above all, guys, that's something I need to know. And you've got to help other people understand that that's something we all need. He goes on, and John brings up a connection through received authority. He says, all authority we have is received from God. It's not mine, not yours, but it's His. We receive the call and the capability and everything that we get to be His hands and His feet and all that kind of stuff. And what we have to understand is then that authority brings up an opportunity for you to receive authority from Him to be His hands and feet, to carry out His work here upon this earth and to do those things. And when you help other people understand that, then you come back and that's when you're able to say, and that's the only way I have any authority, right? Is based on the fact that I receive authority from above and therefore I respond to it. And that's exactly what John says here in this last bit of this passage of Scripture, if I can find the Scripture now. Last bit of this passage of Scripture, he said, he who believes in the Son has everlasting life, and he who does not believe in the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abides on him.